Good evening. It looks like I'm the first here. No, four other people beat me to it. Okay. All right. Welcome to today's Bible Hour. For some people, the best hour of the day. For others, the worst. What are you going to do about it? Just join us. Jump on in. It is day 48 of reading the Bible. For some people, that is 48 hours minus me talking, as in not the Bible bits. But it is good going. We are fast approaching day 50. Good evening, Owen. Do you have deacons in your church? In this new church, no. No, we've certainly got functioning deacons, but they wouldn't be officially set apart as deacons. A lot of the elders actually do diaconate stuff as well, and then just congregation members basically do the role of a deacon, but in the Presbyterian setup, no. Nikki H on Park End admin tonight. Welcome on in. We have made it halfway through 2 Kings chapter 10. You can check on Twitter and Facebook to see a little chart of the kings that I put up not too many hours ago. Yeah, the webcam colors are off again. How am I sounding, Park End admin? Should be all good in the hood. We have dropped the 10 decibel boost. We'll see if that improves things. Welcome on in. Come one, come all, Christian, non-Christian, where we read the Word of God. All right. Hey, MacDonald, always good to see you up in the Bible Hour. Hope your wife and child are okay. Saw a lady with the name of Jehu today on Facebook. Wow. Facebook, eh? Crazy times. Patty Bob, want to search on Facebook, see if anyone's got the name Jezebel. I would be fascinated to know if anybody on planet Earth has the first name Jezebel. Good evening, Diane R. Good to hear it, MacDonald. Glory. Oh, what you should do, MacDonald, is get them to video message our church so we can put it on our Sunday service and say something like, hey, we're MacDonald's family. Hi, Park End. You can pray for us, and then list a way that we can pray for them or something. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. Do it, MacDonald. And then WhatsApp it to me. Good evening, Phil Tamlin. Still part sponsor of the live stream, Phil Tamlin. Hanging on by a thread. We will begin reading the Word of God in 4 minutes' time. ETA. 4 minutes. Hey, Paula B in the house. I actually laid eyes on Paula B in the flesh today, and Ricky B, and daughter B, and grandson B. Oh, he wouldn't be B, would he? Unless he is. Yeah, do it, McDonald. Send us a video message from the family. Grandson E. Ah, don't get me started, parking admin. I know it. I know it. Windows are the same. Windows updates just assume they know that they think what settings I would want, even though I have set my settings, they will override it with their updates. There are few things more annoying. We are in 2 Kings chapter 10 and we will be commencing from verse 15. There are some big events around the corner. Hey, Sue Roberts in the house. Sue Roberts, I've got a plan to walk Evie the dog to your front wall and sort of safely communicate to you both. Chris Henry in the house. Chris Henry, you may notice that the lighting is somewhat different again. That's because the old program failed and Logitech have released a new program and the lighting is a bit different. And if I put the white balance all the way down like I did with the old one, it looks like I'm something that the Witch of Endor would summon up, even though she didn't do that summoning. And my t-shirt is not actually this color green. So we're quarter of the way up the white balance now. Isn't it verse 18? Yeah, I think that's what I said, Ricky B. MacDonald, I have a question that's bothering me. Elisha succeeded Elijah because he complained to God, or was it purely God's plan? No, did we cover that? The Elijah handover. Now I think buried in my head, I know the answer to that because I think I have studied that in the past. Elijah. Yeah. So we had Elisha as his apprentice. That comes in after Carmel. Let me just reverse up a minute and it'll come back to me if I see the actual verses. Oh no, the changeover was a while ago, wasn't it? Hold on a minute. We've got 1 minute. We can sort this out before then. It's around end of chapter 1, I think, isn't it? Let's zoom up there while people are still gathering in. me know why you think it was. Ooh, ooh, unstable connection. Hold on. Unstable connection. MacDonald, let me know why you think it was due to a complaint, and I'll reread one or two things about it and get back to you. Meanwhile, we are in 2 Kings 10 and we're ready to rock. 2 Kings chapter 10, verse 18. Welcome to the Bible Hour, where we ask these two questions every single day until day 60, where we will finish the whole Bible. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Then Jehu called a meeting of all the people of the city and said to them, Ahab's worship of Baal was nothing compared to the way I will worship him. Therefore summon all the prophets and worshippers of Baal and call together all his priests. See to it that every one of them comes, for I'm going to offer a great sacrifice to Baal. Anyone who fails to come will be put to death. But Jehu's cunning plan was to destroy all the worshippers of Baal. Then Jehu ordered, prepare a solemn assembly to worship Baal. So they did. He sent messengers throughout all Israel, summoning those who worshipped Baal. They all came, not a single one remained behind, and they filled the temple of Baal from one end to the other. And Jehu instructed the keeper of the wardrobe, be sure that every worshipper of Baal wears one of these robes. So robes were given to them. Then Jehu went into the temple of Baal with Jehonadab, son of Rechab. Jehu said to the worshippers of Baal, make sure no one who worships the Lord is here, only those who worship Baal. So they were all inside the temple to offer sacrifices and burned offerings. Now Jehu had stationed 80 of his men outside the building and had warned them, if you let anyone escape, you will pay for it with your own life. As soon as Jehu finished sacrificing the burnt offering, he commanded his guards and officers, go in and kill all of them. Don't let a single one escape. So they killed them all with their swords, and the guards and the officers dragged their bodies outside. Then Jehu's men went into the innermost fortress of the temple of Baal. They dragged out the sacred pillar used in the worship of Baal and burned it. They smashed the sacred pillar and wrecked the temple of Baal, converting it into a public toilet, as it remains to this day. In this way, Jehu destroyed every trace of Baal worship from Israel. He did not, however, destroy the gold calves at Bethel and Dan, with which Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had caused Israel to sin. Will someone destroy those calves? Nonetheless, the Lord said to Jehu, you have done well in following my instructions to destroy the family of Ahab. Therefore, your descendants will be kings of Israel down to the fourth generation. But Jehu did not obey the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. Gotta watch doing public displays of religion while secretly your heart isn't in it. Let's turn this into a public toilet, whereas secretly, you know, you're not interested in Jesus. At about that time, the Lord began to cut down the size of Israel's territory. King Hazael conquered several sections of the country east of the Jordan River, including all of Gilead, Gad, Reuben, and Manasseh. He conquered the area from the town of Aurora by the Arnon Gorge to as far north as Gilead and Bashan. The rest of the events in Jehu's reign, everything he did and all his achievements are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehu died, he was buried in Samaria. Then his son, Jehoahaz, became the next king. In all, Jehu reigned over Israel from Samaria for 28 years. Welcome on into the Bible Hour. We are plowing through the book of 2 Kings. If you want to know why we ask these questions, there's a link down below. Join us on Facebook, Twitter, or visit the Park End Church website for more. And don't stop there. Go ahead onto the PCW website, the Presbyterian Church of Wales. We are taking over Wales for Jesus, sort of. At least we want to, I think. We have made it to 2 Kings, chapter 11. Queen, excuse me, Queen Athaliah rules in Judah. When Athaliah, the mother of King Ahaziah of Judah, learned that her son was dead, she began to destroy the rest of the royal family. But Ahaziah's sister, Jehosheba, the daughter of King Jehoram, took Ahaziah's infant son, Joash, and stole him away from among the rest of the king's children, who were about to be killed. She put Joash and his nurse in a bedroom, and they hid him from Athaliah, so the child was not murdered. Joash remained hidden in the temple of the Lord for 6 years, while Athaliah ruled over the land. In the 7th year of Athaliah's reign, Jehoiada, the priest, summoned the commanders, the Karite mercenaries, and the palace guards to come to the temple of the Lord. He made a solid pact with them and made them swear on oath of loyalty there in the Lord's temple that he showed them. Then he showed them the king's son. Jehoiada told them, "This is what you must do." By the way, we are down to 1 again, carrying the line of Jesus. 1. This is what you must do. A third of you who are on duty on the Sabbath are to guard the royal palace itself. Another third of you are to stand guard at the Sur gate. And the final third must stand guard behind the palace guard. These 3 groups will all guard the palace. The other 2 units who are off duty on the Sabbath must stand guard for the king at the Lord's temple. Form a bodyguard around the king and keep your weapons in hand. Kill anyone who tries to break through. Stay with the king wherever he goes. I haven't seen the Bodyguard film with Whitney Houston. Maybe it is based on this story of Joash. It might well be. So the commanders did everything as Jehoiada the priest ordered. The commanders took charge of the men reporting for duty that Sabbath, as well as those who were going off duty. They brought them all to Jehoiada the priest, and he supplied them with the spears and small shields that had once belonged to King David and was stored in the temple of the Lord. The palace guards stationed themselves around the king with their weapons ready. They formed a line from the south side of the temple around to the north side and all around the altar. Then Jehoiada brought out Joash, the king's son, placed the crown on his head, and presented him with a copy of God's laws. They anointed him and proclaimed him king, and everyone clapped their hands and shouted, "Long live the king!" When Athaliah heard the noise made by the palace guards and the people, she hurried to the Lord's temple to see what was happening. When she arrived, she saw the newly crowned king standing in his place of authority by the pillar, as was the custom at times of the coronation. The commanders and trumpeters were surrounding him, and people from all over the land were rejoicing and blowing trumpets. When Athaliah saw all this, she tore her clothes in despair and shouted, "Treason! Treason!" Then Jehoiada the priest ordered the commanders who were in charge of the troops, "Take her to the soldiers in front of the temple and kill anyone who tries to rescue her." For the priest had said, "She must not be killed in the temple of the Lord." So they seized her and led her out to the gate where horses entered the palace grounds, and she was killed there. Lesson there not to be too worried about lower church numbers, because the purpose and plan of the Lord's divine church and messianic lineage was down to one, hidden away in a temple. But, the church shall prevail forevermore. That's not to say each individual church building or small group community will stay open forevermore, and we should work towards them staying open. But even if we close, it is good to know that the Lord's anointed church never ever shuts. Then Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people that they would be the Lord's people. He also made a covenant between the king and the people. And all the people of the land went over to the temple of Baal and tore it down. They demolished the altars and smashed the idols into pieces, and they killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, in front of the altars. Jehoiada the priest stationed guards at the temple of the Lord. Then the commanders, the Karite mercenaries, the palace guards, and all the people of the land escorted the king from the temple of the Lord. They went through the gate of the guards and into the palace, and the king took his seat on the royal throne. So all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was peaceful because Athaliah had been killed at the king's palace. Joash was 7 years old when he became king. Bit like the end times, that chapter. Like evil is mounting, evil is mounting. It seems like Jesus is on the back foot. He's the king, but he's like hidden. Where is he? Is he coming? Boom. With one breath, 1 Thessalonians says, he destroys the evil man. And he's back. Jensen said to me today, my 6-year-old son, yeah, he's 6, Daddy, when Jesus comes back and makes all things new, will dogs have better bodies? And I was like, yes, yes. They will not have bad backs. They probably won't do runny poos. They won't die. That was a tenuous link to 2 Kings 11, I'll give that. And I'm supposed to be talking less because we're on day 48 and about 25% of the way through the Bible. 2 Kings chapter 12. Here we go. Joash repairs the temple. Let's see some good cheery old church workers, shall we? Joash began to rule over Judah in the 7th year of King Jehu's reign in Israel. He reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother was Zibiah from Beersheba. All his life, Joash did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight because Jehoiada the priest instructed them. Yet even so, he did not destroy all the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. One day King Joash said to the priests, "Collect all the money brought as the sacred offering to the Lord's temple, whether it is a regular assessment, a payment of vows, or a voluntary gift. Let the priests take some of the money to pay for whatever repairs are needed at the table." Excuse me. I was trying today at some point in the day to list all the kings in my head and see how far I got on both sides. And then I invented a song, whether they were bad or good. And the song essentially wasn't the most gripping song lyrically ever, but it went essentially bad, 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 all right, bad, 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 all right, bad, 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 bad. But by the 23rd year of Joash's reign, the priests still had not repaired the temple. So King Joash called for Jehoiada and the other priests and asked them, "Why haven't you repaired the temple? Don't use any more money for your own needs. From now on, it must be all spent on temple repairs. Clean the black bricks." So the priests agreed not to accept any more money from the people, and they also agreed to let others take responsibility for repairing the temple. Then Jehoiada the priest bored a hole in the lid of a large chest and set it on the right side of the altar at the entrance of the temple of the Lord. The priests guarding the entrance put all of the people's contributions into the chest. Whenever the chest became full, the court secretary and the high priest counted the money that had been brought to the Lord's temple and put it into bags. Then they gave the money to the construction supervisors who used it to pay the people working on the Lord's temple: the carpenters, the builders, the masons, the stone cutters. They also used the money to buy the timber and the finished stone needed for repairing the Lord's temple, and they paid any other expenses related to the temple's restoration. Here's church workers plugging in together. Money well spent. The money brought to the temple was not used for making silver bowls, lamps, snuffers, basins, trumpets, or other articles of gold or silver for the temple of the Lord. It was paid to the workmen who used it for the temple repairs. No accounting of this money was required from the construction supervisors because they were honest and trustworthy men. However, the money that was contributed for guilt offerings and sin offerings was not brought into the Lord's temple. It was given to the priests for their own use. The end of Joash's reign. About this time, King Hazael of Aram went to war against Gath and captured it. Then he turned to attack Jerusalem. King Joash collected all the sacred objects that Jehoshaphat, Jehoram, and Ahaziah, the previous kings of Judah, had dedicated, along with what he himself had dedicated. He sent them all to Hazael, along with all the gold in the treasuries of the Lord's temple and the royal palace. So Hazael called off his attack on Jerusalem. The rest of the events of Joash's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. Joash's officers plotted against him and assassinated him at Beth Millo on the road to Silla. The assassins were Jozachar, son of Shimeath, and Jehozabad, son of Shomer, both trusted advisers. Joash was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. Then his son Amaziah became the next king. I mean, did all right, Joash. All right. No one quite does it like Jesus. Maybe Moses. No, not even Moses. Oh, 2 Kings 13. I don't know if you know anything about the Eastern Orthodox Church and their theology, but a big part of Eastern Orthodoxy is theosis, the process of theosis, which is that we're partakers of the divine nature, and so spiritually and physically we just become more and more like God. The old saying is God became man so that man can become God. And part of that theological position is in this chapter, I think. 2 Kings chapter 13. Jehoahaz rules in Israel. Jehoahaz, son of Jehu, began to rule over Israel in the 23rd year of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 17 years. But he did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He followed the example of Jeroboam, son of Nebat, continuing the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. So the Lord was very angry with Israel, and he allowed King Hazael of Aram and his son Ben-Hadad to defeat them repeatedly. Then Jehoahaz prayed for the Lord's help, and the Lord heard his prayer, for he could see how severely the king of Aram was oppressing Israel. So the Lord provided someone to rescue the Israelites from the tyranny of the Arameans. Then Israel lived in safety again as they had in former days. So, prayer yet again, the rescue plan of the church, the walkie talkie for divine assistance, and instant help is given here. But they continued to sin, following the evil example of Jeroboam. They also allowed the Asherah pole in Samaria to remain standing. Finally, Jehoahaz's army was reduced to 50 charioteers, 10 chariots, and 10,000 foot soldiers. The king of Aram had killed the others, trampling them like dust under his feet. The rest of the events of Jehoahaz's reign, everything he did, and the extent of his power are recorded in, you know it, Bible Hour, the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoash died, he was buried in Samaria. Then his son, Jehoash, when Jehoahaz died, he was buried in Samaria. Then his son, Jehoash, became the next king. It's a bit like Owen and Owen Jr. Well, it's not as it's like Owen and Oways. Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, began to rule over Israel in the 37th year of King Joash's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 16 years. But he did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. The rest of the events in Joash's reign and everything he did, including the extent of his power and his war with King Amaziah of Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jehoash died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Then his son, Jeroboam the second, became the next king. It's not a great name, is it? Like, that dude is given 3 verses in the Bible, maybe 4, like the whole summary of his life. Actually, he's going to crop up again in Chronicles, isn't he, briefly? But like a whole life summed up like this: he did what was evil in the Lord's sight. It's like, what are we learning about church? In church, we learn how to not do things which are evil in the Lord's sight. And may all of us in Bible Hour and our little sentence written in the Lamb's Book of Life read, they were faithful church members who strived to not do evil in the sight of the Lord. Occasionally they did, but they quickly repented of it. Elisha's final prophecy. Who's wearing black? When Elisha was in his last illness, King Jehoash of Israel visited him and wept over him. My father, I see the chariots and chariots of Israel, he cried. Elisha told him, get a bow and some arrows. So Roberts, I'm in black, nice. And the king did as he was told. Elisha told him, put your hand on the bow. And Elisha laid his own hands on the king's hands. And then he commanded, open that eastern window, and he opened it. Then he said, shoot. So he shot an arrow. Elisha proclaimed, this is the Lord's arrow, an arrow of victory over Aram, for you will completely conquer the Arameans at Aphek. Then he said, now pick up the other arrows and strike them against the ground. So the king picked them up and struck them on the ground 3 times. But the man of God was angry with him. You should have struck the ground 5 or 6 times, he exclaimed. Then you would have beaten Aram until it was entirely destroyed. Now you will be victorious only 3 times. Then Elisha died and was buried. Groups of Moabite raiders used to invade the land each spring. Once, when some Israelites were burying a man, they spied a band of these raiders. So they hastily threw the corpse into the tomb of Elisha and fled. But as soon as the body touched Elisha's bones, the dead man revived and jumped to his feet. King Hazael of Aram had oppressed Israel during the entire reign of King Joahaz. But the Lord was gracious and merciful to the people of Israel, and they were not totally destroyed. He pitied them because of his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And to this day, he has not completely destroyed them or banished them from his presence. King Hazael of Aram died, and his son Ben-Hadad became the next king. Then Jehoash, son of Jehoahaz, recaptured from Ben-Hadad, son of Hazael, the towns that had been taken from Jehoahash's father. Jehoash defeated Ben-Hadad on 3 occasions, and he recovered the Israelite towns. So, obviously, Elisha there being a picture of Christ's death, who by his death produced much fruit. But yeah, and then the Orthodox Church run with that and basically say process of theosis is when we connect with the risen Lord, just like this body touched that sacred body, we become physically and spiritually as God over time. 2 Kings chapter 4. It is the halfway mark of Bible Hour. I've just checked the time. We are 2 minutes over the halfway mark. What was I thinking? Take 47 seconds, maybe 48. Go and grab an apple, a pear, a plum, a raspberry. Go and pour some coffee into a jar of cream, add some ice cubes and whiz it up and drink it down. You've got 48 seconds. Sue Roberts, always on form. Sometimes sometimes Sue Roberts, um, I remember one particular funny thing that you said to me, two particular funny things, and I will just randomly burst out laughing, even though I'm on my own in the house or something. It comes back to me. I won't repeat, but it makes me laugh. In fact, I haven't even told you the second one that you said, which made me laugh because you didn't say it to me. I just heard it. I won't. 20 seconds. I don't know where. Let me do a bit of a timeline check before we recommence. Um, so um, many prophets had been in Israel. Um, their prophecies, when they're written down, they're often written down later. But Hosea began to prophesy in the reign of this Jeroboam, coming up in 14. At the same time, Amos had prophesied, soon after Micah, then Isaiah in the days of Ahaz and Hezekiah. So often in the darkest, most degenerate ages of the church, God has raised some real shining lights into it by their teaching and prophesying and living and writings. We can't possibly reveal such spoilers like that, Sue Roberts. Can't. But I think you're going to find out soon. That's all I'm saying. McDonald, don't let me forget your question either. 2 Kings 14. Amaziah rules in Judah. Amaziah, son of Joash, began to rule over Judah in the second year of the reign of King Jehoash, of Israel. Amaziah was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 29 years. His mother was Jehoadin from Jerusalem. Ah, Sue Roberts, I used to teach Amos. Beware ye kind of Bashan to sixth formers, kin. Amaziah did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, but not like his ancestor David. Instead, he followed the example of his father Joash. Amaziah did not destroy the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. It's interesting, Bible Hour. Why not? Why does there always seem to be an inability and a reluctance to destroy one particular sin? I bet there was a lot of outside pressure to keep it, and things like it's always been done like this in our generation. It's always been allowed. So you should too. Don't rock the boat. It's that sort of thing. It must be. When Amaziah was well established as king, he executed the officials who had assassinated his father. However, he did not kill the children of the assassins, for he obeyed the command of the Lord, as was written by Moses in the book of the law. Parents must not be put to death for the sins of their children, nor children for the sins of their parents. Those deserving to die must be put to death for their own crimes. Amaziah also killed 10,000 Edomites in the valley of Salt. He also conquered Selah and changed its name to Joktheel, as it is called to this day. One day, Amaziah sent messengers with this challenge to Israel's king Jehoash, the son of Jehoaz, the grandson of Jehu. Come and meet me in battle. But King Jehoash of Israel replied to King Amaziah of Judah with this story. Out in the Lebanon mountains, a thistle sent a message to a mighty cedar tree. Give your daughter in marriage to my son. But just then a wild animal of Lebanon came by and stepped on the thistle, crushing it. You have indeed defeated Edom, and you are proud of it. But be content with your victory and stay at home, socially distancing. Why stir up trouble that will only bring disaster on you and the people of Judah? But Amaziah refused to listen. So King Jehoash of Israel mobilized his army against King Amaziah of Judah. The two armies drew up their battle lines at Beth Shemesh in Judah. Judah was routed by the army of Israel, and its army scattered and fled for home. King Jehoash of Israel captured Judah's king Amaziah, son of Joash, and grandson of Ahaziah, at Beth Shemesh. Then he marched to Jerusalem, where he demolished 600 feet of Jerusalem's wall with the Ephraim gate, from the Ephraim gate to the corner gate. Ew, dear. He carried off all the gold and silver and all the articles from the temple of the Lord. He also seized the Speak quieter. Speak quieter. Shall I turn the volume down, Parker and Admin, because I'm almost maxed here on this preamp. Big distortion. Owen, ow my ears. Wow, I didn't even touch anything. Right, I'm dropping it. Wow, that's weird. I didn't touch anything. All right. Sorry about that. Down more correctly. Oh, man. Ladies and gentlemen, I can confirm that the preamp has died. Wait there. Battery change live on air. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Bible Hour. We should be loud and clear, and let's pretend that did not happen. And let's certainly not tell Neil Whittington that that happened, because he tells me most days to make sure the batteries are charged. So we will just move on. I don't know where I am, and I don't know what I was saying. Neil is here. Oh, I'm finished. I'm finished. What verse do we get to? Where are we? What even book are we in? Have we reached the New Testament? Is that where we're at? Is this Matthew? Oh yeah, they've carried off the gold. All right, should we go from verse 15, Park End and Bible Hour gang? Let's go from verse 15. Oh, no, 14. He carried off all the gold and silver and all the articles from the temple of the Lord. He also seized the treasures from the royal palace along with hostages and then returned to Samaria. The rest of the events in Joash's reign and everything he did, including the extent of the power and his war with King Amaziah of Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Joash died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel, and his son Jeroboam II became the next king. King Amaziah of Judah lived for 15 years after the death of King Joash of Israel. The rest of the events of Amaziah's reign are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. There was a conspiracy against Amaziah's life in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But his enemies sent assassins after him, and they killed him there. They brought his body back to Jerusalem on a horse, and he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. All the people of Judah had crowned Amaziah's 16-year-old son, Uzziah, as king in place of his father, Amaziah. Uzziah rebuilt the town of Elath and restored it to Judah. Uzziah, some of your cogs are turning. Petty, well, I can't hear. Good. Chaos in day 48. It'll go down in infamy as the one where the batteries blew up and Owen destroyed the eardrums of many of the readers. Anyway, I'm losing it. Verse 23. Jeroboam II, the son of Jehoash, began to rule over Israel in the 15th year of King Amaziah's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 41 years. He did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. Jeroboam too recovered the territories of Israel between Labo Hamath and the Dead Sea, just as the Lord, the God of Israel, had promised through Jonah, son of Amittai, the prophet from Gath Hepher. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the first time we have heard of Jonah. And yes, it's the Jonah. And there is some speculation whether this is before or after the event of Jonah. Commentators differ whether that was Jonah's first sort of employment or the story of Jonah was it. For the Lord saw the bitter suffering of everyone in Israel, and that there was no one in Israel, slave or free, to help them. And because the Lord had not said he would blot out the name of Israel completely, he used Jeroboam II, the son of Jehoash, to save them. The rest of the events of the reign of Jeroboam II and everything he did, including the extent of his power, his wars, and how he recovered for Israel both Damascus and Hamath, which had belonged to Judah, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Jeroboam II the second died, he was buried in Samaria with the kings of Israel. Then his son Zechariah became the next king. You know, how often do we see in world history the Lord using bad people for good things? So, yeah, Uzziah had a little sneaky mention there. Uzziah rules in Judah. Uzziah, son of Amaziah, began to rule over Judah in the 27th year of the reign of King Jeroboam II of Israel. He was 16 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 52 years. His mother was Jecoliah from Jerusalem. One of the best Christmas readings is Isaiah. In the year that King Uzziah died, he did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, just as his father Amaziah had done. Sue Roberts, Park End admin, having a chit chat that I've completely missed in the chaos. He did what was pleasing in the Lord's sight, just after his father Amaziah had done. But he did not destroy the pagan shrines, and the people still offered sacrifices and burned incense there. The Lord struck the king with leprosy, which lasted until the day he died. He lived in isolation in a separate house. The king's son, Jotham, was put in charge of the royal palace, and he governed the people in the land. The rest of the events of Uzziah's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Judah. When Uzziah died, he was buried with his ancestors in the city of David, and his son Jotham became the next king. There's also a couple of references in Amos and Isaiah about a massive earthquake around this time, and we'll get to that in a bit. Jotham became the king. Zechariah rules in Israel. Zechariah, son of Jeroboam II, began to rule over Israel in the 38th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 6 months. Zechariah did what was evil in the Lord's sight, as his ancestors had done. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. Then Shallum, son of Jabesh, conspired against Zechariah, assassinated him in public, and became the next king. The rest of the events in Zechariah's reign are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. The Lord's message to Jehu came true. Your descendants will be kings of Israel down to the 4th generation. Shallum rules in Israel. Shallum, son of Jabesh, began to rule over Israel in the 39th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah. Shallum reigned in Samaria only 1 month. Then Menahem, son of Gadi, went to Samaria from Tirzah and assassinated him, and he became the next king. I mean, church has just gone to absolute pot at the moment, hasn't it? With the exception of some godly people here and there. And I venture to say that the city of Cardiff, Wales, and the various cities represented in the Bible Hour have at the moment gone to pot. And so the call of the hour is be people faithful to the word of the Lord, his church, and be of clean living, Christian living. The rest of the events of Shalom's reign, including his conspiracy, are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. Menahem rules in Israel. At that time, Menahem destroyed the town of Tapua and all the surrounding countryside as far as Tirzah because its citizens refused to surrender the town. He killed the entire population and ripped open the pregnant women. Menahem, son of Gadi, began to rule over Israel in the 39th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 10 years. But Menahem did what was evil in the Lord's sight. During his entire reign, he refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. Then King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria invaded the land. Here come the Assyrians. But Menahem paid him 37 tons of silver to gain his support in tightening his grip on royal power. Menahem extorted the money from the rich of Israel, demanding that each of them pay 50 pieces of silver to the king of Assyria. So the king of Assyria turned from attacking Israel and did not stay in the land. The rest of the events of Menahem's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. When Menahem died, his son Pekahiah became the next king. Oh, I lost my place. What verse did I just get to? Because the thing just shut down. 23. Got it. Thank you, Park End Admin. Pekahiah, son of Menahem, began to rule over Israel in the 15th year of King Uzziah's reign in Judah. He reigned in Samaria 2 years. But Pekahiah did what was evil in the Lord's sight. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam, son of Nebat, had led Israel to commit. Then Pekah, son of Remaliah, the commander of Pekahiah's army, conspired against him. With 50 men from Gilead, Pekah assassinated the king along with Argob and Ariah in the citadel of the palace at Samaria, and Pekah reigned in his place. The rest of the events of Pekahiah's reign and everything he did are recorded in the book of the history of the kings of Israel. Man, we have reached Bible hour, and there is just death and destruction, and kings who aren't doing things right, and they're not getting rid of these idols, and they're just imitating Jeroboam and all that evil stuff he did. Is there a king, a lion from the tribe of Judah who can finally set things right? Is there someone on planet Earth that we can trust and turn to for security, guidance, who is worthy of submission and obedience, because all that he does is good. Is there anyone, Bible Hour? And above him they wrote, King of the Jews. Jesus, ho, Kyrios. Jesus is Lord. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. God willing, we will see you back here at 9 p.m. tomorrow for another uplifting, light-hearted trip down Massacre Lane of assassination and bloodshed. Petit bois, few, death and destruction. Yep, that's what happens when you don't follow Jesus. Sue Roberts, I'm glad I didn't live in those times. Exclamation mark number 1. You wouldn't know which side you're on. I know, I know, I know. Get on the side of the prophets. All right. Petty Bar 23. He just reminds me 10 minutes later what verse I was on in case I needed to remind myself. Charge your batteries. I'm on it. I'm on it. I'm on it. Amen. 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 We will see you tomorrow. Sorry, Neil Whittington.